To episode 34 of URI Just Getting Started. Tonight I'm joined by one of the premier sports writers in Rhode Island. He's William Geohegan, but you really are one of the premier sports writers. You really dig deep more than anyone. You rival Bill Koch of Providence Journal, in my opinion. It looks like you guys have a little banter going on Twitter.
Yeah, we're good friends. We've been sitting next to each other at games for a long time, so
yeah,
let's have some fun. Yep.
But on a side note, we have one programming note after the show. Don't go anywhere. We're going to have coverage of some of the best games between URI and PC. It's bonus coverage. Some of the games aren't on the court. They break out into the stands, and there's lots of fighting. It is a rivalry. I'm going to ask you that question too. But also, by the way, I loved your piece on Lewis Hutchinson.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Tell me about that article and what you learned from that and your opinions of him.
Yeah, I mean, it just stuck out in that game. You know, he hadn't really done a whole lot yet, and obviously had been out a lot of the preseason with mono. And then came out and had a great game and just looked really smooth for a freshman.
Who are you going with in the future for this game?
I think I'll take the Friars in this one. I think both teams are still sort of figuring it out, but there's an experience edge with Providence, and I think just a little bit of a talent edge at this point. I think PC is still very much working their way, developing their identity. This is not the team that went to the Sweet 16 last year, certainly, but they're still pretty good. Jared Bynum is really tough. Bryce Hopkins inside, it's going to be a really tough matchup. All the guys inside, I think Ed Croswell had a big game against URI last year. I think URI can hang and make it close. I think the crowd will help, but ultimately, for a URI team that hasn't been able to get over the hump yet, playing a pretty high level team, I think they won't be able to get over the hump, but at some point, they'll push it along for a while, but at some point I think the Friars will pull away.
Well, I think everything you said is right on target, but tonight we're going to dig in deeper, and I have 10 points that URI needs to do to win this game. I think they have a chance, but PC is definitely the better team at the moment. How important is it to have experience from people that have played in previous games than now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's huge. Experience in college basketball is huge in general, right?
I'd like to add this specific game.
Yep. Yeah, experience is huge in general in college basketball, and then when you add a game like this, like the crowd is going wild, there's just an extra level of intensity. So knowing what that's going to be like, I think, makes a big difference. And for people who don't know what that's going to be like, it's going to take a few minutes to sort of settle into that kind of game. So I think that's big. I think having Ish Leggett and Malik Martin can help URI in that case. They'll probably need to lean on guys like that to settle into the game. The other point about the fast start, that would be one of my top keys too. You can't get buried like they did in that game last year. They played okay in that game after that point, and just couldn't overcome the slow start. And I think, especially with the game at the Ryan Center, if you can get off to a fast start and get the crowd going, then that can change the game even more.
Yeah, you said it there. Everything. Last year, 13-2 was their death knell. They made some runs, but just when they made runs, it looked like the momentum changed to PC, and they never could get by that hump of 13-2. And frankly, this year, their offense is challenged right now. They're young. They have great players who will be great offensive players, but they're new. So if they get down by a big lead early or even have droughts, it's going to be very difficult for them to win. I'm looking for them to get a good, decent start.
Yeah.
And I feel like the sentiment this year, you know how Rhode Island fans are. You're in the North Kingston area. There's a brashness to them before these games, and they're lacking that this year? Have you talked to anyone around campus, or you feel like there's a little less confidence in this game compared to others?
Yeah, I mean that's probably true. Given PC success and just the situation this year for URI with the first year of a kind of a rebuild. Yeah, I think maybe they don't need to feel the brashness either because they like what they have with Archie Miller and like the future. But yeah, I don't have a great feel for how the fans are viewing it going into the game, but I know it'll be wild on Saturday, regardless of what they're saying now.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're going to the game. And keep hydrated. You had told me earlier on that you have COVID now, and
Yes.
you're gonna make the game. Your whole family has it. You're in
Yeah.
lockdown. So, I'm so happy that you're going to be able to be at that game.
Yeah, it was good timing in the sense that we'll be out of isolation on Friday, so good. We'll be back, or I'll be back at the Ryan Center, ready to go.
What role will the bigs play on Rhode Island and on PC?
Yeah, I mean, I think Josephat Bilal has been kind of a revelation since coming back from the surgery. I sort of viewed him just in the preseason, not having really seen him much, as pretty similar to Alex Chiku, but Bilal, I think, clearly is a little bit bigger, is a little stronger, has a little more experience, and you've seen he's had some nice games. Had the double-double in the Cayman Islands. So he's going to be really key, I think, in terms of rebounding and in terms of just not getting into foul trouble and really holding his own in the paint. I don't know that he needs to score all that much, but he's got to be able to rebound, and he's got to be able to keep PC off the glass. That was a big part of that game last year, with you mentioned earlier with Ed Croswell. He had a huge game. Bryce Hopkins is a tough matchup. He can score inside and out, but I don't know who guards him for URI. So I think the bigs are going to be key. I think PC will really try to take advantage of their size advantage and try to score inside, try to dominate the paint a little bit. So URI is going to have to really try to hold their own there.
What I'm thinking is the three bigs, including Sam too, by committee, if they could manage 10 points and 11 rebounds, I think that keeps Rhode Island in the game. And Alex made some really good inside moves, but it's very scary looking at PC teams year in and year out. They're always attacking the glass and getting second chance points, and that kills them. First of all, the stats are stacked against Rhode Island if you compare them to PC, but right now Ish Leggett is just doing everything, and Freeman Bray is doing everything, and looks like he's in an upward trajectory. So I give the edge to the backcourt at Rhode Island in the statistical category. But what's glaring is that besides those two, there's a big gulf between a third leading scorer on the team, and that could be a very difficult situation it could be a long night if they can't get contributions from some of the young players. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, Freeman has really played well since he sat that game. As he kind of tried to get his head on straight after the rough start. He's played great, and he can, I think, make URI a much better team than they looked when he was struggling. And Leggett's been fantastic. I mean, just kind of a breakout year for him. But I agree. I think if it's just those two, that's not for a team that struggles to score. That's not going to be enough. They're going to need some guys to make some outside shots. They're going to need some guys to get offensive, second chance points. They're going to need some contributions off the bench. Two guys are not going to be able to do it, I don't think, against PC.
And then PC's top player is Bryce Hopkins from Kentucky, and I've been watching him. I saw him in the St. Louis game, and he's a 3-level scorer, and I hope that he doesn't have that breakout game. He's averaging 14 points now. They have some depth in a lot of the positions, and they have some role players. I'm afraid of no Locke shooting. Jared Bynum is solid. And they have transfer Devin Carter from South Carolina. You were saying about PC's team and not being as strong as last year's, but you sound bullish on the team anyway. Looking past Rhode Island, how far can this team go?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can certainly contend in the Big East, you know, be in top 4, top 5, and be an NCAA tournament team. They have the talent to do that. Last year's team was sort of that special, had that special mix, special something to win all those close games. But this team, like Bryce Hopkins is really, really good. Bynum's a great floor general and point guard. So yeah, I think they can do a lot this year. It's just a matter of getting it right and kind of finding out who they are.
And then this is what I'm talking about. When you go through the stats in every category, it's funny though. The one area that URI stands out above Providence is rebounding. They have an edge, and which could be a tricky a number to look at because of the competition that they've played versus PC. But if this holds out, that would be a great thing for them. But look at the difference in scoring. I mean, they have another 15 points, Providence. Every category. One of the most jarring is the turnovers, 16 to 11. It feels like even more. The field goal percentage, they were doing well on the foul line. And this is another troubled area, the 3-point percentage. You know, at 24%, I feel like we're at last year's shooting. And they're decent, and they hurt us in the past with their 3-point shooting. I thought maybe we'd get a break this year, but they're still doing pretty well. What's your thoughts on these numbers that I brought to you just now?
Yeah, the rebounds is interesting. I'm a little surprised by that. You know, I hadn't seen a side by side before. That PC's identity for a lot of years has been being a pretty good rebounding team. But I mean, Archie Miller has really emphasized that, and URI is doing it pretty well. I think he thinks that's a key for them. Turnovers is also a big key. They haven't really cleaned it up completely. They obviously got off to a really bad start in those first 2 games, and it's been a little better since. So they'll have to work on that. This is a game where they can't turn it over 20 times. They're not going to win if they turn it over 20 times. And the 3-point percentage, that's probably another number where you shoot 24%. Maybe you can hold your own. Maybe you can be in the game. But if you can get back into the 30s, have a really good shooting day, then you're talking about maybe having a chance to win the game, I think.
Yeah. Well, my first take is we need a more balanced attack. I was referring to that. And we know Leggett and Freeman, they're at more than half the points of the rest of the team. And Freeman, it looks like he'll be moving much closer to Leggett. The way he's playing, I don't know, as well as anyone on the court in this next game, I would believe. His athletic ability is just scary, what he can do on the court. And then you have the next closest scorer is Malik Martin at 6.5. So how do you feel about their more balanced attack? Can they do it in this next game? They've shown some signs in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody will be able to pick up the slack. In those kind of rivalry games, you often get like an unsung hero who comes out and has a big game. Maybe it's Abdu Sam inside cleaning things up. Maybe Malik Martin, having been the most experienced player, can step up. Maybe Lou Hutchinson off the bench. But yeah, I think somebody will. It's just a matter of whether it's going to be enough.
Are you surprised by the play of Ish? I knew he would do well, improve. He was really positive about staying. It looks like he meshed well early on with Archie Miller, but what he's doing is just phenomenal. The statistics and the play, the Cayman Classic, that one game. Are you surprised at his play? Were you expecting this?
Yeah, I am a little bit surprised. He always looked, these last 2 years, like a really good, like steady, complementary piece, like a guy you could count on, really hard worker, great defender, good rebounder. and he would score a little bit, but he wasn't a great shooter, and didn't necessarily, I don't know, have like the perfect role in that offense in previous years. But he's just thriving right now. I mean, shooting the ball better, getting to the basket, playing with a lot of confidence. He's been great. Really huge, pleasant surprise for the Rams, I think.
And we talked about this too, avoiding a slow start like they had. They also had a slow start against Kansas State. I don't know about that one. Even if they were close, the play of Kansas State was scary, their athletic ability and their length. If they start playing tight and they give up second chance points early on, and they're playing behind the whole game in the Ryan Center, then that takes the fans out of the game. So I think they have to take care of the ball from the tip, and they have to avoid empty possessions, which they've had.
Yep. Yeah, the slow start's huge. I mean, you gotta be able to avoid something like that. Fall into a hole, it's gonna be hard to dig out for a team that is never gonna light the world on fire offensively. I don't think this year at least. They have to scratch and claw, and you can't. All droughts. I think there's going to be some droughts for this team in most of their games. It's just kind of the way it's going to go because they don't shoot it that well. But avoiding a drought, especially at the start, I agree is a huge key for them.
And we talked about taking care of the ball, and some more stats. Factoids: 6 out of the 7 games they've had more turnovers. They haven't had the toughest schedule, so that hurts a lot. You know what they're averaging. But the one good sign is in the second half of the BC game, they cut down their turnover. You think they have the potential to play against PC and keep the turnovers down to a winnable margin?
I think that's possible. I think they have been trending better. I think they're understanding a little bit more of the offense and their roles and what they need to do. And PC is not going to be, this isn't like Shaka Smart's VCU Havoc teams that's trying to force 25 turnovers. So they're not going to be, it shouldn't be a game where URI has 22, 23 turnovers. It's whether they can, I think, keep down the unforced ones. But it's also, it is a tricky thing. Like turnovers, if you say you can't go into the huddle before the game and say, don't turn the ball over. Like that removes like if guys are thinking that, it takes away like the rhythm of basketball. So there's going to be some, but if they can kind of play a little more methodically, maybe, think a little bit more and just be feeling good about themselves, then, maybe they can cut them down a little bit.
And here's one: don't shoot your way into a bad 3-point shooting game. This happened a lot last year when they'd have these 3 for 16 games. I think they had one against BC, something like that. So if you're not hitting the 3, then go to the mid-level is what I'm saying, or find another way to score, get it inside. But if it's not working at the 3-point, don't get to that point where you're really suffering and you have so many attempts coming up. Do you think they should be looser and have more of a free reign on the 3, even though obviously they're not hitting them this early for the most part?
No, I mean, I think you're right. It's Archie Miller has talked about that too. Like, they're not a great shooting team, so they have to take good threes. They can't take pull-up 3-pointers, can't take contested 3-pointers. Even early shot clock 3-pointers sometimes aren't the best look. So yeah, just take the good ones, take the ball reversal, long rebound threes, stuff like that. But otherwise, if you're forcing it, that's not going to help, I don't think.
So you're saying like if Bassey takes one from Connecticut, it might be too far.
Might be if he tries to beat Jimmy Barron, but
yeah, that last one was really far.
Yeah, it was.
He had another one after that, but he made it, and I think he had a pretty good game last year. He had almost a breakout game.
Yeah,
a great basketball authority, Abu Bakar, has said, that he thinks he's playing injured or has an injury. You'll never know because he's a Martin and they play with broken kneecaps, from what I hear in the past. Do you think he can get back to where he was? I mean, his statistics from 2021, he shot 50%, he's shooting 25%, but 67% from the foul line, he's 50%. Do you feel like it's possible? He is getting blocked a little more, and that's a sign, in my mind, of someone who's having lift problems and may be playing hurt. Should he be playing in the first place if he is in fact injured, or do you think he can get back to where he was, because he's the glue guy on the team and he makes everyone better?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think they do need a little bit more from him. He's a great leader for the team and a great guy in terms of setting the tone. If he's rebounding and playing tough inside, that can certainly help. A little more offense, I'm sure he would want that too, and the Rams would want that. I wonder a little bit about sort of the system and where he's playing. Is he a little more undersized this year against the way other teams are guarding URI now? Maybe, but yeah, he seems like he's not quite where he wants to be. I don't know if it's an injury. It can be tough this time of year to really get totally right, but he'll certainly keep playing through it. URI can count on that at least, and maybe he has a breakout game though. I think that's certainly possible that he could come out Saturday and make some threes, hit some big shots.
Yeah, these are the pathways for a win for Rhode Island, and they don't have to do all of them. And if it wasn't for the BC game, I wouldn't have had this next point up. But they shot 58%, and they finished the game. They reminded me of the year before team, 2021-22. They went 2 for 6 at the end, and guys like Leggett, who have been sure things at the foul line, missed. Josephat Bilal rimmed out a pair. Do you think that was an anomaly, or is it something that we should just think about? Maybe not be concerned, but just be aware of going into a game like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's mostly an anomaly. I think free throw stuff in general. I'm not a big free throws are a big factor person. Free throws kind of are what you are at the free throw line, and those two teams the last few years, they weren't good free throw shooting teams. They weren't good shooting teams, and they weren't going to be good at the foul line. You start doing math. Oh, we missed 15 free throws and lost by 14. We just needed to make all those 15. That's why you're not going to make all those 15. But I do think free throws can be key at the end of a game. You've got to make your free throws in the last 4 minutes. That's huge. There's not going to be, a lot of times you don't see a whole lot of points from the field in the last 4 minutes. Even from the team that's winning. You got to make free throws. You got to find a way to make those. And they have been a pretty decent free throw shooting team. They've gotten to the line. They've made them at a decent clip. It was just, I think probably just a bad finish, just the way it went against BC. Yeah,
but overall, that has been a pleasant surprise. And last year was very hard to watch at the foul line. And I'm putting that mildly.
It was.
So they have to flush down the bunnies, and you're watching the last game. There was a sequence where I think they had at least 3 shots inside at the end, and the bigs need to finish strong. There's too many missed layup opportunities, and right now of the 3 bigs, I think Frenchie with those 2 8-7 games seems like our best closer. He's a little faster. But what's your take on that? Do you feel we have to be more efficient with the easier shots? They kill when you miss those.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that possession you're talking about up against BC, it was a great effort to keep getting the offensive rebounds and just couldn't put it away. Yeah, I mean, especially against PC, they're going to be tough inside. They're going to body you. They have some height. If you get a clean look inside, got to finish it because you're not going to get a whole lot of them.
Yeah, great point. And then contain Bryce Hopkins, which is going to be difficult. this guy is tough, and I feel like I was watching him in the St. Louis game again, and he can really hurt us. What's your thoughts on Bryce Hopkins?
Yeah, I mean, when you watch him, he's just a matchup nightmare, like for almost any team in the country, because he can score inside, he can score outside. He's got a big body. He's just really tough. Like, do you guard him with a big guy and then he steps back and takes a three, or drives around him? Do you try to put a little guy on him so you can stay in front of him and then he's posting him up? So yeah, just a really tough matchup. Yeah, I could see that with Hutchinson maybe having the height to match up with him and being a guy who seems to have some good defensive instincts. I would think Malik Martin too would be a guy who could potentially match up with Hopkins. That's going to be really interesting to see what URI does against him and how they decide to attack that. I think that'll be a big key to the game, definitely.
But one thing we both agree, he's the real deal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Didn't play a lot of Kentucky, but when you've been a 4-star recruit who got to Kentucky in the first place, that you've got something. They don't miss really. They might not be the right fit, but those guys have some talent for sure.
Well, let's hope we could keep him to 14 points. I'll take that.
Yeah. Yep.
And then C-ball, Ed Croswell. He just murdered Rhode Island, and he came out of nowhere. The season before, this is another Keeney Blue stat. He averaged 2 points per game at LaSalle. And if you watch him, they just had no answer for him. And he's back. And I don't think our front court is as strong as it was last year. It can be in the future. But we have to find a way, an effort, so he doesn't match the same game that he had last year. He is someone that could just make a lead into a double-digit lead that we can't get past. And I think he was a big part of that last year, all those easy baskets and offensive rebounds.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of there were stretches of that game last year where PC's best offense was a missed shot because Croswell was just going to go get it.
Yeah.
He was that game.
Well, can they contain him, or we just don't have the horses yet, or the experience yet?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. Certainly URI doesn't have anybody with that body and that experience. But can your fundamentals be enough to counter him a little bit so he's not dominating the game? Can you hold him to 7 rebounds and eight second chance points? So you could probably take that. So you got to box him out. And like, I think that the title of this slide is a good way to do it. C-ball, Ed Croswell.
Yeah. Sure. Well, you know how Cooley plays. He breaks the game into 10 minutes, and they're wars every 10 minutes. And then this is easy, right? The Ryan Center.
Yep.
We've got that 2-game win streak. We have a winning record versus PC at the Ryan Center. And my question is, there'll be over 8,000 fans in attendance. So these young players have never experienced a true Ryan Center experience. And they are talented, and they've all had excellent games where you could see them being great players in the future. But I think that if the Ryan Center gives them the confidence, even if it's 2 of the players of that group, that might be enough to squeak by and beat PC. Yeah,
I mean, it's a great atmosphere. It's going to be like the big atmosphere that a lot of these guys have ever played in. But they're going to be, on the URI side, they're going to be cheering for them. So that can give you a lot of confidence. It can give you a lot of energy. So I think kind of URI has to find a way to thrive on that. And Fats Russell used to kind of play to the crowd, and you don't want to maybe deliberately do that, but feed off of it a little bit and get the crowd going when you make a big play, get the crowd going when you make a defensive stop. and that can keep things going. If it comes down to, you make this like a 6 or 8 point game, is the Ryan Center worth another 4? Maybe, and then you're talking about a game that's anybody's game down in the last 4 minutes.
Well, we know what Fats Russell did, and he was encouraging the fans, gesturing for them to scream even louder. And we have another guy on the team this year. Can you guess who I'm intimating it as the player on Rhode Island that could be close to Fats Russell in personality? To see if we have the same mind on that.
Maybe Freeman?
That's right.
Yeah.
He loves it. He travels and he makes amazing plays, and he's going to be scary. If he has a big game, he could pour in 30 points. I know they're keying on him and ish, but sometimes you just can't stop a player like that with his speed, and he's the closest thing to Fats Russell with the speed and going by. And scoring on fast break points.
Yep. Plays with a lot of confidence too.
Yeah. And then one more honorable mention, Lewis Hutchinson as the X factor. And this is going back to your article, and it shows that he has the potential to be possibly Atlantic 10 first team all rookie team. If he gets back to where he is, and he definitely has the confidence in him by the way he shot those threes and taking over a game. What I was talking about, he took on Keontae West on Kansas State, who was the guy that I thought was going to be going off and not the other players. And he didn't have much of a game. So this might be a big X factor, having Lewis Hutchinson in the game, even if he doesn't hit his threes. He's proven that he can hit the threes and he can hit them confidently, but he's my X factor. Who's your X factor, without putting you on the spot?
That's a good question. Maybe I might say Abdu Sam inside. If the guards can get some penetration, I could see him finishing inside a little bit, getting some rebounds. If he has a really good game and he holds his own inside, maybe that makes a big difference for URI.
That's the great thing about these games. You never can tell who's going to have the great games, and it just doesn't translate from the game before. And it can be Sam, and he surprised me early on in the season.
Yeah.
So what's the score you predict? It's a tough one.
I actually hadn't thought that much about the score. My guess would be like a 70-63 kind of game, something like that.
I have Rhode Island winning 62-58.
Okay, slow down, slow pace game.
If it's possible. I don't know if you could get 58 from PC, but the break point maybe would be 64 points. If they start getting more than that, I don't know if URI has the offense. So maybe I'll change that to 60. Am I allowed to change that?
Hey, I don't make the rules. It's your podcast.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go 68-64. A little more offense from the others. Some new players. Brandon Weston, maybe he'll have a good game. They're showing some signs. So that's what I'm going to go with them. Before we go, do you have time for a few questions from the fans?
Yeah, sure.
I guess having COVID, you have a lot of time.
Yeah.
Well, here's a guy named Blue Man from Keeney Blue, and he's curious to hear your take on Ed's seemingly more respectful tone around the rivalry game from Monday's Zoom call. Is it as simple as Archie is his friend and he doesn't want to insult him? I like that question. That's a gutsy question. I'm putting you on the spot. That's for you.
The whole it's not a rivalry thing, I always thought was like a really weird and silly thing to say. It was Ed Cooley, like, a few years ago, he said some weird. I just feel like he wasn't comfortable necessarily talking about the game for some reason, and I think there's like an element of PC, being at a higher level in the Big East and saying those are the big games. This isn't the big game. Those are the big games. But it's clearly a rivalry. Like it was a stupid point of discussion. I hated talking about it when it happened. So I'm glad that he has sort of reversed course. I think Archie is part of it. He's clearly very good friends with him. I also think Cooley is just a lot more comfortable in his own skin now. Like you take a team to the Sweet 16. They have billboards with things that he says, his catchphrases now. He is kind of like has the key to the city at this point. I think he's more comfortable to say, okay, like this is fun. Like this is big. This is going to be a big game. I hate playing at the Ryan Center. Like it's big. It's a rivalry. I was glad that he said that because it was silly. It was silly.
Were you well enough to attend the Zoom call?
I actually didn't. I was feeling okay, but didn't ultimately do it. Dealing with two sick kids who were not feeling okay.
That's a little more important.
Yeah.
I think that's excellent take on that. And at the time, Cooley was a coach that couldn't win the first round at NCAA. And URI was a team that won 2 straight years. So if anything, at that time it was more of a rivalry than it is now. But like you said, how much can we talk about that? You did answer the question. You didn't duck the question. Like he ducked the game.
Yeah.
That's not a great. Here's another question. Do you see Archie tinkering with the lineup? We saw a few changes in the Cayman Islands. Do you know who's going to start?
I don't know who's going to start. I don't really have a good feel for it. I think it's very possible. I think they're going to tinker it a lot as the season goes along. I think, and really the starting lineup is, it's kind of is what it is. The ending lineup is really what you're watching. That Boston College game, I mean, the last, 7 or 8 minutes, it was pretty much the same 5. It was Leggett, Freeman, Weston. I'm forgetting which Martin and Bilal, I think, were the other two. But yeah, I mean, that's what I would look at. I don't know if those guys will start, but that's the lineup that Archie felt comfortable with against BC. Maybe that was specific to that matchup, but either way, I think those are some of the guys that he trusts, and those are the guys who are going to get a lot of minutes. Yeah,
that's true. Have you heard of the leaderboard that Archie has? He has from 1 to 13. And do you have any insight from the practices who's made the most gains in the leaderboard?
No, yeah, so I've heard of it, but we don't actually, media doesn't actually get to watch any practices.
Okay.
That's actually pretty similar. I mean, that was the same with the David Cox era.
Yeah.
Dan Hurley, back when he first got started, we could watch practice, but yeah, that is not the case anymore. So not really familiar.
Any insight? Will there be a Jalen Carey sighting? I think that's a very important piece there.
Yeah, I almost listed him as my X factor, and then remembered what Archie said after the BC game, which sounds like he may be out for a while. Nagging injury, and that's tough. And it's seems like no on Saturday, but I guess we'll see.
Wow. Well, William, you've been an excellent guest, and thanks for coming in today.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. Thanks for having me.
I just want to remind our viewers to stay tuned to see some great video of the past games, PC, URI, and as always, go Rhody.